Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Vista Historical Society Annual Meeting Hall of Fame induction. At this time, I'd like Spike Harvey to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Spike. You may be seated. A warm welcome to our Deputy Mayor, John Franklin, back of the room there, and Vista Irrigation Board Member, Paul Dory. And my fellow board members, would you please stand and be recognized? Michelle Moxley, Cheryl Larimer, Carolyn Charavolga, and Sandy and Spike. Thank you. Michelle, would you come forward, please?
Can I have you bow your heads with me? Heavenly Father, we thank you that we can gather together to pay tribute to those who have done so much to help our community to grow and develop. Bless our leaders, bless our military, and all those in attendance. We ask that you bless the food and watch over all who are attending. Give each a safe trip home and continue to bless the Historical Society. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you. At this time, lunch will be served. And also a reminder that we have our merchandise up here in the front, and as well as membership applications. So we'll see you after lunch. Please finish your lunch. At this time, we would like to start the induction ceremonies of the Hall of Fame. I bring up Tom Robertson, who's our MC this afternoon.
Thank you, Terry. Once again, is Chuck here by any chance? Or who stepped out? Chuck Rabel? Good. Because Chuck Rabel has a policy, most of you guys know Chuck Rabel, that Vista is a no-tie zone. And he tells each of us that wears ties to any of the meetings that we go to, the government affairs meeting that I cover for the Vista Press, that if you have a tie, and I learned long ago I never wear a tie to that, because all the newbies that go in there from the Assembly and the Senate, their representatives are told quite frankly right off the bat that they must get rid of that tie. So Chuck, I think, stepped out, which is good, so I'll keep my tie on. Once again, thank you, Terry, and the Historical Society for inviting me to come up here. Tom Robertson, I read a lot of articles for the Vista Press, and do a lot of things since I've been retired. One of them is I actually work for special events at the San Diego County Fair, which is coming up, so it's a really fun thing to go to. So make sure you stop out the fair. They put in 1.5 million people every year down there. And I'll be doing an article about our own Strawberry Festival, and I call that a prelude to the fair, because it is a little mini fair. So that will be coming up. We're going to change the order just a little bit of the induction, and we're going to introduce right now Deputy Mayor from Vista, John Franklin. John is a Vista City Council member, and like I said, Vista's Deputy Mayor. He's a member of the Board of Directors of the North County Dispatch Joint Powers Authority. He is a member of the North San Diego County Transit District Board, and he's an alternate on the Encino Wastewater Authority. So Mr. Franklin is going to come up and tell you a little bit about the first inductee for the Vista Historical Society.
Thank you. And thank you to our Mayor Jim Ritter for giving me all those additional jobs. Keeps me very busy. But not nearly as busy as our first inductee has been over the last 6+ decades of his life. 4 of those decades here in Vista. I have the honor of introducing to you today Congressman Darrell Issa, who I've had the great privilege of spending the last 16 years. It was May 23rd, 2003, I began working for Congressman Issa in Washington. And that's the way I found my way to Vista, was through my work with the congressman. So here we go. Darrell Edward Issa, an American businessman and Republican politician. He served us in the United States House of Representatives from 2001 to 2019, serving 9 terms, representing a district that covered primarily North San Diego County and at times Southwest Riverside County and South Orange County. Issa served as CEO of Direct Electronics, which he co-founded in 1982 with his wife Kathy, who's here with us today. One of the largest makers of automotive security and home and audio products in the country, and actually in the world. Darrell is one of 6 children. He's the second of 6. He was born in Cleveland, the son of Martha and William. His father sold trucks for GM, if I remember correctly. He grew up in a predominantly Jewish suburb of Cleveland Heights, and has taught me a lot of Yiddish throughout the years because he's well versed in it. In 1970, on his 17th birthday, Congressman Issa enlisted for 3 years in the U.S. Army, and he was trained and became an explosive ordnance disposal technician, and he likes to remind me he was pretty good. He still has all the fingers. Yeah. So, he attended Kent State and Siena Heights University, where he graduated with a bachelor's degree. He, after serving as an enlisted member of the Army, he was commissioned through ROTC and became a second lieutenant in 1976, and he retired from the U.S. Army in 1980 as a captain. And if you remember, then a totally unknown lieutenant colonel who became a 4-star general, Wesley Clark, was Captain Issa's commanding officer, and gave him a review and said, quote, "This officer's performance far exceeded that of any other reserve officer who has worked in the battalion. Promote ahead of contemporaries. Unlimited potential." After leaving the military, Darrell and Kathy moved back to Cleveland, and I like the story how Darrell and Kathy met. Darrell was stationed at Fort Ord in Monterey, and his neighbor across the hall, I'm probably going to get the story a little bit wrong, was Kathy Issa, then Kathy Green, right? Kathy Stanton. And she had locked herself out on the 2nd floor, and so her neighbor was Darrell, and she knocked on the door, and I think convinced him to shimmy up the drain pipe and got it back in, and the rest is history. So after leaving the military, Darrell and Kathy moved back to Cleveland. They pulled their resources and they invested in the first of their electronics manufacturing endeavors. In Cleveland, they founded Direct Electronics together and quickly found success, and they moved their business here to Vista. In Vista, they created nearly 200 jobs and hundreds more in other parts of the United States and Canada. Today, the company's brands still include the iconic Viper car alarm with Darrell's voice as the recorded message that says, "Protected by Viper, stand back, step away from the car." Darrell's became involved in national policy through his role as chairman of the Consumer Electronics Association, and traveled to Washington to testify before Congress on different trade matters. And in 1996 became very involved politically, was instrumental in bringing the Republican National Convention to San Diego, and served as the chairman of the volunteer effort, where he led the efforts of thousands of volunteers in San Diego for the National Republican Convention. 2 years later, Darrell decided to run for the United States Senate, and being unsuccessful, 2 years later, when our then 18-year Congressman Ron Packard retired from Congress, he reached out, and Darrell decided that at that time that he would run for the United States House of Representatives. So he was elected in the year 2000. While in Congress, actually, this is about the point where I entered Darrell's career as a small part of it. And, you know, I was thinking this morning as I was preparing a few things to say, how much effect that Darrell's had on my life. You know, I moved to Vista, I met my wife here. You know, it's had tremendous impact. I have worked with hundreds of other individuals over these 16 years whose lives have been touched by Darrell and Kathy, and the business they built and the office that the congressman occupied, and their work. And it's impressive to think how many people's lives have been affected by the work and the organization that he built. But in 2003, it was interesting. I was working for today's U.S. Senator from Missouri named Roy Blunt. At the time, he was the House Majority Whip. I was an unpaid intern. My parents had no idea who that was, even though he was from the next state over, out from Kansas originally. But then I began working a couple months later for Darrell Issa, a congressman they weren't familiar with either, but he became nationally famous in 2003 when he stepped up to make the recall of then Governor Gray Davis happen. There was a deep dissatisfaction with Governor Davis, and Congressman Issa saw that there was an opportunity to make a recall campaign happen, and he stepped up, led the effort, and it was the first and only successful recall of governor in California's history. Not long after that, Congressman Issa was tapped to serve as a subcommittee chairman on the Oversight Committee, a committee that a lot of members, you know, in Congress they have A committees and B committees, and then they have C committees. The A committees are what they call under the rule the exclusive committees, which is Ways and Means, Rules, Appropriations. You can only serve on one of those committees. If you serve on one of those committees, you're not permitted to serve on any other. The assignments are so coveted. And everything else is technically a B committee or a non-exclusive committee. But then they have the C committees, the kind of the committees that people didn't really want to serve on, and you know they would do it if they were asked. Well, at the time, oversight was kind of looked at that way. By the time that Congressman Issa became chairman of the Oversight Committee, and at the end of his tenure, oversight was looked at as an A committee. He turned the committee into a committee that every member of Congress wanted to be a part of and wanted to serve on. Of course, I don't have to tell you about the many investigations that he was involved in and led. He led investigations into wrongdoing on a number of fronts. But what you may not know is that he was dogged in his pursuit of wrongdoing in the Bush administration. In the beginning of his tenure on the Oversight Committee, he led investigations of the Bush administration's misuse of official records and emails. And what he never got credit for was that he was an equal opportunity investigator, and he believed that oversight was the role of Congress, whether you were overseeing a Republican or a Democrat administration. And of course, he conducted many oversight investigations into the Democratic administration. But I think he doesn't receive the credit that he's due for his work in accountability and oversight on a bipartisan basis, because he was very, it still is very committed to that effort. A few key pieces of legislation that I think are important from Congressman Issa's career. In 2013, he introduced the Digital Accountability and Transparency Act of 2013. The shorthand for that was the Data Act. And the Data Act is something that wasn't national news, but the kind of technical knowledge that Congressman Issa brought to our national policy making, he had the idea, after a lot of research and a lot of visiting with government technology executives, that we needed a common data platform for watchdog organizations and the news media to be able to uptake government spending information in a common data format. And so he was the author of a piece of legislation that required government to have a common data format so that the New York Times or the San Diego Union Tribune could build formats to receive government data and to publish them and not have to build a new format for every agency, which allowed the news media to take that information and actually make it usable for the American people. He was instrumental in the Freedom of Information Act Oversight and Implementation Act of 2014, which made it easier to access government information and made that information publicly available after it was requested, not just to the requester. He also passed a very important piece of information, legislation, which streamlined the purchase of government technology. The FBI famously wasted billions of dollars acquiring a piece of software that they spent more than 15 years developing. The Affordable Health Care Act website famously cost more than $1 billion. There were a lot of abuses in the IT consulting sector. And seeing this, Congressman Issa passed a piece of legislation to streamline, to give more power to chief information officers and to reduce the number of CIOs that serve each agency to one, so that there will be one point of accountability. Another important thing that he did was to create the patent pilot program. As the holder of 37 patents himself, he uniquely understood that American entrepreneurs and intellectual property creators had unique challenges when they got to the courtroom and they faced judges who weren't up to this task of dissecting complicated patent law. So he created a policy that allowed the formation of a special patent bench, and 14 federal judges were set aside to become experts in patent law. And those individuals have expedited patent litigation and have dramatically reduced the number of appeals that we see from the patent courts. And that has saved taxpayer dollars and has saved dollars in the private sector. Following his announcement that he would retire from the House of Representatives, on September 19th, 2018, President Trump nominated Congressman Issa to be the director of the United States Trade and Development Agency, an agency of 80 federal workers whose mission is primarily a diplomatic mission to the developing world, but also a commerce mission to take United States service and goods and take their manufacturers to the developing world to increase exports of energy, transportation, and telecommunications technology. And he is currently awaiting a hearing in the United States Senate, but we wish him speed in that process. It's a process a lot of folks have been waiting to receive their confirmation for many months. And so with that, I will now turn the microphone over to Congressman Issa, if that's the order of events here. Thank you for indulging me in that long list of
Thank you. The question is, what more needs to be said? Let me just take just a couple of minutes. First of all, thank you, Historic Society. You know you're getting old when you're getting these Lifetime Achievement Awards. The good news is I'm getting them. Okay. The alternative is you get them posthumously. But let me just take a moment for a few folks that have lived here a long time. I happen to serve 18 years, 9 terms. I inherited or more specifically, ran and won this seat when Congressman Ron Packard retired from substantially the same seat. He served 9 terms, 18 years. And the interesting thing was his wife, Jean, wanted nothing to do with politics. She was a staunch Republican, but she hated it. She hated him traveling, and she hated traveling even more. And but she put up with it for 9 terms. Kathy will tell you that although she's traveled with me around the world over the years, including Syria when we were about to bomb them, and the message had to be delivered that we were about to bomb them if they didn't stop doing certain things. She had a choice of going home or hanging out with me, and we looked back and we've agreed it was probably foolish and reckless. Particularly considering our child who was an adult, but not quite ready to fly on his own for us both to go there. But the fact is, she's fearlessly done that. You know, John talked about the business of Vista, but after that breaking and entering second story maneuver that got us to know each other, shortly after we were married, I took a left or right turn, whichever it was, and went from a corporate America job just as I was leaving the military. Practically the day after I started, I came back and said, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to go into partnership in 1980. This was when you had double-digit cost of money and double-digit inflation. And we packed up our 67 Carnegie, and Kathy, who was by then 6 months pregnant, or 5 months pregnant, I guess, right under the limit of being able to drive across country. We actually had to negotiate like a partial fly and partial drive. And she went back to Cleveland. Now, how many people are from that part of the world here? Okay? Okay, you understand, it's true love. Okay, if you're willing to go from Monterey to Cleveland. on a permanent move, okay, that was the thing, you know, for a weekend maybe. But the reality is she did. We had a couple of startups there. The one that I was able to really get off the ground in a big way. We eventually moved partially out here and eventually fully out here. But the time really had to be, at some point, it was time that it was enough. And it was about 4 years before those 9 terms, which I think was the same for Ron Packard. And so I always say, you know, my greatest legislative accomplishment was I got the Ron Packard Post Office name in Oceanside. Well, Ron was not only still alive, but he was barely out of office. They actually passed a rule, you can't do that anymore. I have to die now in order to get a post office named after me. And bless Mike Levin's heart, I think that would be just about what he'd be asking for. But the fact is that it's a great honor to serve. I may or may not serve longer in federal government at some point, but it has been a great honor. And for all of you that, you know, kind of watched Kathy and I go through this for the last 18 years, thank you for being supportive. No community was more supportive than Vista. And although my district changed lines multiple times, Vista was always the center of it. It was always our home, and it was always the place that you know, even if people didn't vote my party, disproportionately they voted support for us trying to do the right thing. So, you know, history will tell on the current administration, the ones before, but as John said, the passion that I did develop in Congress was knowing that just like in business, you know, people only do well what the boss is willing to look at, for good or bad. And I do believe that oversight is the neglected part of what Congress does. And I'm not talking about gotcha and impeachment. I'm talking about simply sending the letter out saying, hey, you've lost a couple of $1 billion of $20 bills in Iraq. Could you explain how that happened?
Yeah.
Now, in fairness, that was George W. Bush's administration that lost a few $1 billion because they didn't think about the fact they were injecting money. They never thought about that cash can go anywhere. and wherever it went, most of it didn't stay in Iraq. These things happen no matter how much you care about your country, no matter how much you're trying to do the right thing. And so it has been an honor to serve. My only regret, if any, is that A, I didn't do more, and B, I didn't pack it in maybe 4 years earlier. So thank you all.
John and Daryl, if you would step right in front here. And on behalf of the Historical Society, they would like to present you with this certificate of the election into the Vista Historical Society. We'll photo op time here.
How do I do this?
You do. I have to wait for the camera here. We'll finally lighten this up so you're not like a big shadow in front of the window. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you once again, Daryl, and congratulations. At this time, I'd like to introduce to you the presenter for the second induction into the Vista Historical Society. This young lady was a 2018 Historical Society Hall of Fame inductee. She is an active member of the Women's Club of Vista and the Pride of Vista Lions Club and the Route 78 Civitan Club. She is the owner, editor, and the oldest and most read online newspaper in all of North County. That's called the Vista Press, which I love to work for. She sends me to the most difficult of all the assignments on the Vista Press. I have to cover things like the Rhythm and Blues Beer Festival, the Taste of Vista in downtown historic Vista, the barbecue cook-off at the Vista Gas and Steam Engine Park, the Great Gatsby featuring wineries from all over North County. Difficult assignments. Please welcome Eleanor Hutchins.
I'd stand behind the podium, but you probably can't see me if I do that, huh? I'm always told to stand on the riser.
By the way, Chuck, Eleanor says you are not 65 years old.
That's a standing joke between Chuck Rabel and I. Good afternoon, I'm Eleanor Hutchins. Was pleasantly surprised last year when I was inducted into the Vista Historical Hall of Fame. It's an honor to me today, as a recent inductee, to know what the prestige of being inducted is. And it's great pleasure that I introduce to you one of Vista's, or two of Vista's finest. 1978, when Carl Ames entered my business to order some business cards for his business, which was then C.E. Ames Construction, I knew I had made a friend. First thing he did is he gave me a hug, and that was Carl. He always was open and loving to everyone he met. He loved his community and showed it by making every effort to make it the best that it could be, and he always helped us needed. His community service volunteering list is long. You probably could stand here for an hour and tell you all about the things he did in the community. Carl was a member of the Kiwanis Club of Sunrise Vista for over 35 years, served as president for 2 years of the lieutenant governor of Division 37 over 18 clubs. That must have been a hoot when he showed up at those meetings. I would have liked to have been there. An active member of the Faith Lutheran Church. He met Carol through the club. They were married in 2008. Not long after that, Carol and Carl went to did a small gathering in their backyard, and from that, the Kiwanis fundraiser known as the Great Gatsby Affair emerged. Now in the 12th year of this event, they have raised over $200,000 to go towards programs and scholarships for our youth in our area. Every penny raised by the Great Gatsby is put back into the community to provide services for youth in Vista as well as North County. Their signature event or program that they help with is Stand Up for Kids, which is an awesome thing. Now to Carol. She's a member of the club also for 13 years and has been president twice. You know, the Kiwanis Club, Sunrise Club of Vista is very fortunate to have two people like both Carl and Carol in their organization. I know there are a lot of members, Dan Regan, Mary, There's a lot of members of that organization that are very, very active in the community, and they all deserve at some time or another, if we should live this long, I was telling you earlier, to all be inducted into this great Hall of Fame. Okay, Carol had a passion for helping others as well as her community. Her and Carl were a team, and together they showed it. They showed up everywhere, working and helping wherever they could. The club probably asked them to do one thing, asked Carol to do one thing, but Carl came along, or if Carl had to do an event, Carol was there with him, so it was a 2-for-1 kind of thing with those two. The Stand Up for Kids is a great program that they were really, really invested in, and to this day, Carol continues to be active with that group as well as the Kiwanis, and is a member of the Faith Lutheran Church. She recently closed her business, and there again, she was one of my customers in my pruning company, which I deeply appreciated. Baby Sand and Gravel. She owned that and operated by herself for 25 years. You know, or may not know that Carl passed away last year, which left a really void in our community. I would like to be able to let you know that it's a great honor for me to honor both of them. And these two people have made Vista one of the best there is. It is my honor and pleasure to present to you the other half of this great duo, Carol Brady.
Thank you, Eleanor, sorry. I thank Eleanor and Pat Richardson for nominating Carl and I to the Hall of Fame. Singly, I don't think we could have done it, but together we were a special twosome. So, thank you very much.
And once again, we grab the certificates. Unless you did not. And on behalf of the Vista Historical Society, a certificate of election to the Vista Historical Society Hall of Fame. Carl Langs, Carol Brady.
Because what about we got happening in the end?
Uh-oh. Get the better half.
Thank you.
And Eleanor will be back up in just a little bit. Our third recipient for the Hall of Fame and presenting information concerning this individual, please welcome up a gentleman who was born, raised, and still lives in Vista, the nephew of our recipient, Nick Antalis.
Good afternoon. So on behalf of the Antalis family, there's many of us here, we'd like to thank the Vista Historical Society for the election of Bill Antalis to the Hall of Fame. I'm not going to go through all the details that are in the program in front of you, but let me just mention some of the highlights. So Bill was born in 1917 in Tehachapi, California, to Nick and Bessie Antalis. Nick Antalis, my grandfather, had purchased the land around the current ranch for the Adobe in 1911. And Bill moved to Vista as an infant to begin his life on Rancho Minerva. The ranch at that time was about 400 acres in size, and the nearest neighbors were the Delphi family about 2 miles away. Bill was witness to the developing farming community in Vista. He saw the transition from dry farming to the first citrus and avocado groves after the establishment of the Vista Irrigation District in 1924. As a teenager, Bill helped his father make the adobe bricks that were used to construct the current Rancho Minerva adobe residence, which now serves, of course, today as the home of the Vista Historical Society Museum. He also designed and built the large water fountain structure behind the adobe. Of course, growing up in Vista at the time led to many other firsts. When Bill was 4 years old, the local Vistans were trying to establish the first school. However, they needed 7 students to justify the hiring of the first school teacher, and there was only 6 students of school age in Vista at the time. So the local authorities convinced his father to let Bill attend school at the age of 4, and he became a member of the first school class in Vista. Later, Bill was a little bit older, and he joined the first Boy Scout troop in Vista. Bill also was a very good athlete and track star, winning the Southern California CIF High School 100-yard dash championship. So he became the first Vistan to represent Southern California in the state championships. One particular first that the family is not really proud of is related to Bill's driving ability. He was well known for his poor driving habits, probably due to learning how to drive on a large ranch without any other drivers around. And as the story goes, Bill hit a large object one dark night as he was driving on an isolated dirt road outside of Oceanside. He got out of the car to see what he had hit, and he saw a cow staring back at him. A few seconds later, the cow fell over dead. So we think Bill was the first person in the area that actually got a roadkill. So anyways, then the rural community of Vista was not big enough to hold Bill's curiosity, and he ended up attending the University of California, Berkeley, graduating with a degree in engineering, specializing in metallurgy. He then founded his own company called Felton Aluminum and was moved to Santa Clara in 1947. Felton Aluminum became known as the world leader in specialty aluminum products, with customers spanning across the globe. Bill was recognized throughout the industry as an engineering specialist in the design and manufacturing of aluminum cast products. Bill served as president until his death in 1998 at the age of 80. And during his lifetime, he was really known as our dear uncle to all the many first, second, and third cousins in the extended Natalis family. He treated all of us with tremendous love and support and helped us in so many ways. He was literally the uncle you could always depend on when you needed help growing up or just being treated as something special. This included everything from taking us out to nice dinners or giving us a nice place to stay during our college years. Or in my case, taking me to many sporting events which he loved, like the 1984 Olympics. Although he traveled around the world, his greatest joy was coming back to Vista and spending time on the ranch with his family. So even though he's not here today with us, I can tell you with certainty how proud he was being known as a Vistan, and how thrilled he would have been to be recognized as a Hall of Fame member. Thank you again to Vista Historic Society for this honor. Thank you.
And once again, on behalf of the Natalis family, receiving the certificate of election to the Vista Historical Society Hall of Fame, Nick will be receiving for Bill. Our fourth inductee will be introduced by the son. David Nichols is the event coordinator and board member of the Alta Vista Gardens, and he would like to announce also that you have to remember the Alta Vista Gardens hosts one of the largest mead festivals in the nation, and they just did that in April, I believe,
Yes.
and over 1,000 people attending that, drinking lots of mead. So once again, David Nichols. Hello.
So my mother was very special to Vista. Vista was very special to her. She was married to my father in 1945 and had 4 sons. I was the last of the 4. I am 52 years old, and she would have been 97 this year. They retired to Vista in 70, and she was an active volunteer, environmentalist, conservationist. She was always trying to get into anything that she could to help Vista, whether it be nature, recycling was her big thing. She had a vision for recycling that was far ahead of a lot of different people, just about everyone actually. She created the first recycling program in Vista and in the county way back in 1980. So I was in Boy Scouts then, and I was 13 years old, and guess who picked up all the recycling? Me and my friends in Boy Scouts. We went on to create different recycling areas. She worked with the Girl Scouts, the Brownies, a lot of different groups to recycle, teaching people how to respect the environment and our town. I think litter went down a little bit, but that's just me. There wasn't very much litter back in those days, but no one really knew about picking up and recycling, so she made everyone aware of that, and that was great. In '91, she presented her recycling program to delegates from 60 nations during a global assembly of women in the environment. Partners in Life, it was called. And she was so excited about that. She wrote a long speech and really brought it home to our Southern California, home to the world. There were a number of women, I think over 218 success stories presented at that assembly. And so, kind of fast forward a little bit to 2008, my mother was given a truck way back in the day, and she recycled with the truck and used it and kind of proved herself, and the Women's Club started to make a lot of money actually on these recycling back and forth. They had little depositories all over the town for newspapers and cans. And so in 2008, they cashed in their CD for $10,000 and started to help the Alta Vista Botanical Gardens, who I work with today. They built a pond, they built all kinds of interesting art pieces, and a waterfall that's really great. It's still there today. It goes down into the Palapa area. So if you haven't been to the gardens, get up there and check it out. It's really cool. And a lot of what you'll see there is her and her footprint there and how she tried to beautify Vista. In February 2010, Mayor Morris Vance declared Miriam Nichols Day in Vista, and she was really tickled. Should have seen her smile. And she really loved just doing her thing for Vista, and she really didn't want a lot of that fanfare, but she got it anyway. In 16, she was celebrated as a firstie at the California Federation of Women's Club State Convention for her first in city and county for her recycling program. And that's what I wanted to cover most. She went on to do a lot of other things, oak planting, bell program for the county where they did El Camino Real bell restoration. They put one into Baja, and she went down with the mayor of Baja and met them. It was a really big deal for her and the ladies. So thank you so much for inducting Miriam into the Hall of Fame. I believe she really would be smiling and laughing today. And it is up there. Cheers.
Once again, Dave will be receiving, on behalf of the Vista Historical Society, the certificate of election for Miriam Alice Small Nichols. Don't forget the meat festival, right?
Don't forget the meat festival.
The fifth inductee into the Vista Historical Society is Rocco Falusi, and introducing information about Rocco, who is not with us, obviously, and White Catherine, by the way, is sick, so wasn't able to attend. But Rocco Jr., you're here, and we'll have you come up also to accept the certificate. Please welcome back Eleanor.
I can't tell you what a pleasure it is for me to be up here introducing these great people into the Vista Historical Society. I'm going to go back a little bit only because the history with Rocco doesn't go back as far as with Carl and Carol, but Rocco was just as important in my life with what he did for Vista and what he did for me. I can share some of the military accomplishments while he was in the Marine Corps, which are amazing, and most of them are listed in the program. I think more than anything else is his commitment to his country and his service is what's so genuinely, it just really it gets me to think that somebody with the gallantry and his dedication to his country was amazing. His service in Vietnam, receiving all the awards, including a Purple Heart with one star, is probably one of the least precious ones that he did when he was in service. After Rocco retired, him and his wife Catherine moved to Vista. Both were involved in a lot of things, as well as St. Mark's Church in San Marcos, where Rocco served as a Eucharist minister. Moving to Vista, he was elected I guess he was kind of like I am. I'm here, there, and everywhere, and he was one of those people that knew him when he walked into a room. He felt there were no strangers. He did an awful lot of things, and he served in a lot of board positions. One of the clubs he belonged to was the Amigos de Vista Lions. He served on several of their board, and then later in 1991, Rocco helped the Pride of Vista Lions Club, which is my club, as our guiding lion, and helped us form our club. We were very, very happy to have him. That's where I became really close to Rocco. Between the Lions Club and being a part of his campaign for the year he ran for the Vista City Council, he served one term on the Vista City Council, and in his spare time, Rocco liked to do gardening and all that other kind of stuff. He had a school, which is Nordstrom Institute, where he taught young people how to become entrepreneurs and start their own businesses. Since he loved gardening, he soon discovered the Vista Gardens. There he met, and I can't ever remember the gentleman's name, Dr. Durian, I think was his name. Was that his name? And he became part of their board. He helped them through the development stage of the Alta Vista Gardens. It was clear that his vision for the environment, because he always preached to us in our Lions Club about the environment and how important it was to our community. That's why the Pride of Vista Lions inducted or enacted a scholarship for a high school student of $2,500 for a young student who was going to be an environmentalist. We presented 2 different awards for 2 different years, and those young men went on to do very great things in the environment. So it kind of was a fun thing for us, and to think that it was done in Rocco's name. What an honor it was for me to know this great, caring, loving, and energetic man, and it was really special to me. He will always be remembered by many who knew him as being very special. So I present you, and I thought Catherine would be here. I will ask Rocco to come up and accept his award.
Hi. I don't have a prepared speech, so I'll try to make this quick. I'll just tell you a little interesting story. I tell you, my dad could take a limb off a tree and stick it in the ground and it would grow. A big tree. And we have a lot of trees in our yard that are just like that. One in particular, we have an orange tree. He brought back a little clipping when he was stationed in Japan, in Okinawa. He brought back a little clipping of a Japanese little orange tree, and he spliced it with one of our California orange trees, and now we have a big tree. On one side of it has little bitty oranges about this size, and the other side they have California oranges. So they're very sweet, and I tell you, I'd like to go down there underneath the tree and just hang out. So I tell you, he would really like to be here right now. I appreciate everything that you guys have done and have said about him over the years. I appreciate all his friends that he had. He knew everybody. And I thank you very much for being here today. So, thank you.
How about if we ask Ted Cole, since Ted served with him on the council, would you like to say a little something about Rocco?
Sure.
Put him on the spot. I didn't ask him, I'm sorry. Okay, don't go with Rocco.
Rocco was and I still consider is one of the most memorable men that I have met in my life. Rocco served on the city council of Vista not as a politician, but as a public servant. He loved the city of Vista. He was compassionate about the city of Vista. And that compassion is what is a result sitting up there in Burgle Terrace Park. It was an honor to know him. It was an honor to serve with him. And it's certainly an honor to stand up before you all and thank you for recognizing him and inducting him into the Historical Hall of Fame. Photo op. Now, let's come on. Once again, presentation of the certificate on behalf of the Vista Historical Society, Rocco Beluzzi. And I'm sure Elmer and other members of the Historical Society would like to tell you they are collecting names of people you think might be or should be inducted in the Vista Historical Society that have made an impact and a difference in the city of Vista. At this time, I'm going to turn it back over to Terry, who is going to acknowledge the retiring board members and the existing board members for re-election.
Thank you, Tom. Please bear with us. We have to do some business at this meeting, as this is also our annual meeting. And we are going to, we have 7 board members that have concluded their service this year. 3 long-term board members are retiring. They are past president Janice LaFane, Paula Nix, and Frank Lopez. Janice, would you please come up? Not all of it, but and Frank's daughter, please come up. This is Linda Lopez Alvarez.
I had no idea I was going to do this. Thank you.
Get my skinny side, please. Thank you.
We thank them for their contributions to the society and the numerous hours that they put in for the society over the years, and it is greatly appreciated. Thank you. 4 members are recommended for re-election this year. They are Carolyn Charabolga, Sharon Laramore, Chuck Rabel, and myself. Also, we have a new board member that we would like to elect today, and that is Eleanor Hutchins to our board of directors. All in favor of re-electing and electing these members to the board of directors of the Vista Historical Society, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. On a sad note, we lost one of our board members this year and former president, Diane Eckert. She was heavily involved in the society for many years, along with her husband, Paul. And she was a great president and donated many hours to the Historical Society. She'll be greatly missed. This year, the society was able to improve our grounds so that we rent it out for special events, such as weddings, that we've had quinceañeras. This has been a successful aspect for our fundraising for the museum. Paula Nix ran the program for many years, and now we have contracted with Opal Sierra and this and that events to handle the bookings and so forth of the events at the museum. Unfortunately, we found out that we had a serious building problem with our museum, and that is the kitchen area, that the foundation is sinking. We have one door to the kitchen that we cannot open, and we have contracted with a construction company to raise the foundation of the kitchen area. And you know, as with any old building, that we have ongoing maintenance and repairs that we have to do to the facilities there. Please come by and see the new exhibits that we have in the main room of the museum. There are collections from some of our members, and we are always looking for new collections in case you want to loan one to us and put it on display there. Our annual ice cream social will be held on July 27th at the museum, and our barbecue is on September 14th. And we welcome all of you to attend those. We wish to thank all those who have donated to the museum, their time, money, and the items in the past year. And we thank all of you for coming today to honor the society and our Hall of Fame inductees. And there being no further business, this meeting is adjourned.